We're going to get the Nvidia earnings, and I continue to warn, likely have the extended wave 3 scenario here that the first wave is not done. About divergences developing here on the awesome oscillator and on the RSI. You may even end up getting a triple divergence out of it. If we end up heading to a new all-time high back up to this trend line, you still may end up getting a triple divergence, or you may see the awesome oscillator go to a new high and form a divergence after that if wave 3 isn't done of our first wave higher here. It's a video all the way through. I'll go over the Elliott wave count with you. I think you're going to blow to a new high. I think you're going to get back above the upper boundary of the cloud here and flip back to a bullish reversal of conditions probably tomorrow or the following day. The Nvidia earnings after the bell tomorrow, Wednesday, and then we'll get reaction to it with the market on Thursday, but futures will have already reacted to it. And I think you're going to see the stochastic turn back up here. I think you're going to continue on towards this area here. Get just under it and turn down, or move up to it. Show you the wave counts that either this is the subwave 4 or we're still on our subwave 3. You're headed up here. The new highs like Bitcoin did, I think you'll see green with the awesome oscillator. I think you'll see the cloud flip. We did already have that happen with the NASDAQ today. Getting a rally helping the NASDAQ today. S&P was up 2%, almost 119 points. NASDAQ was up over 2%. NASDAQ 2.39%, up 500 points. We get a bullish reversal of conditions. Remember, I told you this may be short-lived. I thought it was more likely we get that extended wave 3 scenario. I think that's going to be the case. I think you'll see green awesome oscillator bar here in the next day or two. Again, stochastic turning back up. I think you're getting this next push higher. And again, maybe it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we get a 5. Lower high or a higher high at the trend line, as I've talked about, a higher high. Maybe the extended wave 3 is not done. This is all just one massive wave 3, as I've been talking about in every single video. That's very likely. Bitcoin's already moved to new highs. The stock market's probably right behind it. Please support the channel. Support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel. If you could take a moment to partner with me, to step up to the plate and help out, I would really appreciate that. Just put it all out there and ask that you partner with me. Most YouTube channels, sponsors, and try to sell you a bunch of stuff. I choose not to do that. You could take a moment to follow the link below to a secured site. You can make a donation. I would appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration for that. Oscillator trying to go in positive territory for the week. ACD getting back in positive territory here on the NASDAQ weekly chart. Bullish reversal of conditions. Weeks ago, talked about that. Back above the 10, back above the 20. We didn't take out the 200-week moving average, but you're seeing all the bullish things that I talked about. And again, eventually you're going to see several awesome oscillator bars in positive territory, will likely peak out sometime later in the year, in the summer, or maybe the fall. Now, S&P is not there yet. Awesome oscillator is still negative. The MACD is still negative here. But again, eventually you get these positive awesome oscillator bars. We have the negative divergences here. Give us the sell-off. You're going to form a much larger divergence with the previous divergence that gave us the sell-off, or a brand new divergence, one or the other. Told you over the weekend the VIX was stalling at the 50-period moving average, got a topping tail there. This is why I told you we may see the EU immediately try to jumpstart negotiations after they've stalled. And I told you we can see that immediately over the weekend or on into this next week. We're now in. That's exactly what happened. I talked about that topping tail over the weekend. The VIX was down nearly 15% today. That means in the next 2 days we could possibly get a down day on the S&P 500. 85% chance of that. I think it's likely the NASDAQ continue higher with the Nvidia earnings, and I think Nvidia will do the same. Just so you know that is there. Signals on the S&P 500 still bullish here. Green bars, green indicators. The line's still blue. I think we go to new highs and get the divergences I've talked about on the RSI and the awesome oscillator in the daily time frame, and here intraday. Bar's still blue. The line is still blue. Background is still green. I think it was just a short-term corrective move. It's likely over, and I think the advance is resuming. Talked about this last week as we were getting the sell-off, and with that bearish harami, it very well could just be a short-term pullback. Had some momentum signals turn bearish. Got green bars. Moved to a new high. It could cancel out this bearish signal and a few others that were made. Bearish reversal of conditions that we had. The NASDAQ already canceled that out today. Trend signals still bullish. The rally continues. I think we go to new recent highs right here to go back up and test the February peak. And again, here bouncing off the lower end of the cloud here. Again, I think you're going to form these divergences or triple divergences and go higher. Bullish signals hanging in there here. A bearish reversal of conditions, and we saw the momentum line turn bearish here on the S&P 500. Told you we could still end up getting a divergence before all is said and done and still push on up to new highs above this level or even new all-time highs I've been talking about in my videos. Well, what do you know? I was right again. After being told I was going to be wrong about this is the next leg down of the bear market. I told you that the tariffs on the EU wouldn't last, that the EU would come back and try to reboot negotiations after stalling. That's exactly what happened. I told you it could happen over the weekend or on into next week. Gee, what happened? Exactly what I told you would happen. Last week, Trump slapped on tariffs that were going to begin in June. 50% tariffs on the EU. For the weekend, on Sunday, he delayed that until July 9th. After the EU caves, he got a phone call from the president of the European Commission asking to delay the tariffs. Trump did so. Exactly what I told you would happen. How did I know that? Because that's what happened with Canada and Mexico. That's what happened with China. That's what happened back in 2018 and 19. It's not rocket science. Bears were telling us, oh, this is the issue. And remember, the previous week we got the Moody's downgrade. Oh, that was going to be the issue. It's going to give us the next leg down of the bear market. Again, neither one has done so. Massive rally up today as Trump did exactly what I predicted he would do. Everything I've told you about the tariffs has been 100% correct. Everything the media has said and the bears have said, the complete opposite has happened. Adding 1,000. I haven't been wrong yet on it. The media and the bears, they told us we were going to get the tariffs and that's it. The economy was going to be derailed and that's it. It's going to be a train wreck. I told you the tariffs were going to be paused or reduced, or both. And that's correct. We got the launch day of the tariffs on the 9th of April. What did Trump do the very day of the launch? He paused them and reduced them. Exactly what I said would happen. How did I know that? That's what he did with Mexico and Canada. He paused them. Media told us, and the bears, we're going to have this massive trade war, and we're going to get all these retaliatory tariffs, and it's over. What did I tell you would happen? Trump would pause the tariffs, countries would come to negotiate, we wouldn't get a massive trade war. What did the countries do with the retaliatory tariffs? We're going to do it. They paused them because Trump paused his. Exactly what I said was going to happen. They're told by the media and the bears, nobody's going to negotiate, it's over. The economy's going to go into an abyss. What did I tell you would happen? You got to be very naive to believe that countries aren't going to come to negotiate, that they're going to willfully just walk into recession, and exactly what I said would happen took place, and countries immediately calling the White House wanting to negotiate on the tariffs. Exactly what I said happened. The complete opposite to what the media said, the complete opposite to what the bears said would happen. Trump had raised the tariffs on China. I told you eventually China is going to come to the negotiating table. I was called all kinds of names, told I was going to be wrong about China. They don't need the U.S. Yes, they do. They need the U.S. consumer. The economy is collapsing. That's why they're doing all the stimulus. I got called every name in the book for that one. But guess what? I was proven right again. China came to the negotiating table. We get a de-escalation day. We got it. The U.S. reduced the China tariffs by 115%. China did the same with the retaliatory tariffs. 90-day pause as negotiations are now underway. Exactly what I told you would happen, exactly the opposite of what the media told us would happen, and the herd and the bears. I got all kinds of darts thrown at me for that one. It was proven correct again. And then here, 50% tariffs being slapped back on the EU. Why did I tell you that this would be reduced? Remember, I was making an example of China. Would you anybody to the negotiating table like the EU, if negotiations stall, if they don't want to play ball, if they don't want to be reasonable, I told you all Trump is going to do is he's going to slap the tariffs back on, pick those people up. In case it's the EU, they don't want to be attempting to make a deal in good faith. All he's got to do is slap the tariffs back on. Now he's just made another example of the EU. So again, and why the media is wrong about this, why the bears are wrong, is because they think Trump wants tariffs. Trump doesn't want the tariffs. He's using it as a bargaining chip to remove the tariffs, to open up markets. The U.S. He's trying to unlock markets. They keep comparing this to the tariffs in the early 1930s. Complete opposite is happening here. He's trying to use the tariffs to remove the high tariffs in other countries, in this case the EU, which involves several countries. Again, I continue to be correct about the tariffs. Tariffs are a preview of coming attraction. Go to new highs on the S&P. Bitcoin's already there. We'll top later, probably in the summer or the fall, and the stock market and Bitcoin will begin to price in the recession. This is the preview of coming attractions. Moody's downgrade, and then this. Again, the bears keep telling us, that's it, here's the next leg down to the bear market. We're going to get the Black Monday crash and all the rest of it. And I've been trolling the bears a little bit. They said we were going to crash. I told you we were going to bottom with the stock market and with Bitcoin. Tariffs, I was correct. I told you we were going to get a massive rally. Gee, I was correct. S&P's up 23.5%. It's probably going to go higher. The NASDAQ's up 30%. Probably going to go higher. Finish minor wave one. Bitcoin's up 50%, probably going to go higher. And then we're going to get some kind of pullback eventually. Minor wave two. Absolutely incredible. On April 4th, Kramer told us we were going to have a Black Monday crash on Friday, the April 4th, going into the weekend, and everybody started repeating it. There's doubled down on it. Black Monday crashed like 1987, where we dropped 25% in one day. The herd got very bearish. They said, yeah, that's got to be right. That's got to be right. And I told you, when we had this big sell-off on the 4th, I told you we were likely going to bottom with the tariffs. In my opinion, I was right. I told you the tariffs will be a buy-the-news event. The tariffs got launched on the 9th right here. We had the second best day in history on the S&P 500 because Trump paused them. I was absolutely correct. Media told us we're going into the next Great Depression and the economy is going to crash. I told you we were bottoming. They were all going to be proven wrong. I told you we we're going to get a massive rally back up towards the 200, even overthrow it. Why? Because what happened, shopping process in 2007. Because this is corrective. This is an ABC move. The bottom is in. The bears have been telling us all the way up. Oh, we had this rally up. That was it. Bear market rally. It's over. Sold off. Went back up to test it. Bear market rally. It's over. Then we broke the downward trend line. Or I should say we went up to the trend line and the bears told us again, that's it. It's over. And we broke through it. And then we got GDP. It came in better than expected. I told you we could get a back test. Oh, what happened? We got a back test. I was right again. It was over the GDP, and the Fed missed estimate by 2.4%. They were way off and slightly negative. The Fed was predicting coming negative 2.7%. They were completely wrong, as the Fed always is, by telling us inflation is transitory, or in 2007 we're going to have a soft landing when we get a recession, or there's no housing bubble in 2006 and 7, things like that. Yet people still believe what they say. Absolutely incredible. We had this sell-off. We got back above the 50-period moving average. But we were going to get rejection. It's over. Bears were wrong again. We got these candles of indecision. They were continuation candles. And we got up to the 200 period. It was over. And then we gapped above the 200. It was over. At the Moody's downgrade. And what did the market do? Shrugged it off, went in the other direction, went up. Then we get a little bit of a pullback here. At down day, we got a hollow red candlestick there on Friday with the 50% tariffs with the EU, and what do? We gap up higher today. I told you again that very well could be a bottom at the 200 period. Talked about the extended wave 3 scenario again. Now risen up nearly 23.5% from when I told you we had a bottom down here. That on the 7th, I told you that on the 8th, I told you that on the 9th. Before the rally ever happened on the 9th, I was telling you, again, we're going to bottom with the tariffs. Everything I've said about the tariffs has been 100% correct. Everything I told you about this bottom and the rally I predicted has been 100% correct. And my signals are still bullish. At some point, we'll get a bigger pullback, but we could still have, as I keep saying, this extended wave 3 scenario where we go up and we make new highs. Bitcoin's already made new highs. I predicted the bottom and the rally on Bitcoin. Signals mark the very day of the bottom on both the S&P and Bitcoin. The NASDAQ 100, we talked about major support down here. That support, if it's broken, that's going to be very bearish, but bouncing off of it is extremely bullish. Horizontal support, bouncing the trend line on from the 2020 low. Bouncing above the 200-week moving average and the 50-month moving average. All of this is extremely bullish, and I continue to believe we're going to go make new highs, as I told you down here, because this is corrective. Wave 1 probably isn't over yet. I talked about it possibly being over, but I told you I didn't think so, and I told you this is likely a pullback for larger extended wave 3 scenario for minor wave 1. Blown past the 78.6 Fibonacci right here, the 78.6 Fibonacci from this high to this low. It's likely we've blown past that level that we're going to go make new highs. Now, maybe we do it right here, right now with this first minor wave. Certainly possible. Bitcoin did. We get a lower high and pull back, or we can get a higher high and pull back. Market is doing what I told you it would do. It's following Bitcoin higher. And look what's happening. Look what's happening to the 50-period moving average. We got above it. It's curling back up. Eventually, you're going to get the 50 back above the 200. I told you the death cross here with the 50 and the 200 likely marked a bottom. We've had several death crosses during this larger bull market. Bird believes, oh, that's a bear market. That's not. You can get a death cross and have a major correction. We've had several of them here. Longer-term bull market, which I've talked about at great length and detail. Now, if I bring up the Bollinger Bands, I talked about reaching the upper band with an extended wave 3 scenario. I still think that's very likely to go back up and test this level. Maybe we get a lower high and pull back. Maybe we get a higher high like Bitcoin's doing and then pull back. I think Bitcoin's going to reach the upper Bollinger Band here this week and then begin a pullback. Bitcoin conference going on, and I think often those lead to tops with Bitcoin, those Bitcoin events. I think you're going to see that happen. But I think the market is playing catch up. Seeing people say, oh, the stock market's doing well. Now Bitcoin's gonna get its turn. Whoa, Bitcoin's risen 50% since I called the very day of the bottom. The market's playing catch up to Bitcoin. It's not the other way around. At some point, the market's going to pull back. Bitcoin's going to pull back when we finish minor wave 1. I think you've got the extended wave scenario going on right here. I really do. I think you're going to end up pushing up above the upper band, and we could even see new all-time highs with this first minor wave in the near future here. Get this massive 23.5% rally. It's probably going to get bigger. The rally that we were told that we were not going to have happen. I told you we were going to get a massive rally, eventually get back above that 200 period, rally towards it, and eventually get back above it. And that's exactly what has happened. I told you we can go higher and then pull back towards the 50 and 200 if they get a bullish cross, or as they're about to get a bullish cross. Going to happen. Told you, if we get the extended wave 3 scenarios, I think we're likely going to do, you can see this massive inverse head and shoulders. Bitcoin into new highs. We have the trend line from the previous highs on Bitcoin. I think it's going to reach it. It's going to reach it this week. Maybe even overthrow it. Go watch my latest Bitcoin video. I'll link it at the end of this one. You can see the actual trend line. The S&P's got the same thing here. These highs could be pointing to the next high. And we could get it right in here, up in this area, to move above the February peak. I think that is very, very likely. I've talked about this at great length and detail. If we had minor wave 1 completing here, then you might get, this sell-off if you could dip below the 200 period. I told you I thought that was less likely, and I think this scenario is more likely, the extended wave 3 scenario for our first minor wave. I think that is very likely. And then maybe we get more of a shallow pullback and you get this inverse head and shoulders here. I think that we're going to see that happen with Bitcoin. The stock market's, following Bitcoin, doing exactly what Bitcoin's doing. It followed Bitcoin down. It's following Bitcoin back up. Bitcoin's got the possibility of a massive inverse head and shoulders setting up. I think you're going to see the same thing possibly set up here on the S&P 500. That's what I think. But I think you're going to move to new highs. We got Nvidia earnings. That can help the NASDAQ. That can help the semiconductors. That can help tech. AI stocks. See this move higher towards the upper Bollinger Band, towards this trend line right here. And again, complete a 5-leg push higher. I think that is very, very likely. Bouncing off the 100 and the 200. They did get a bearish cross right there. Bouncing off those levels. You got a hollow candlestick on Friday. You got the 20-period moving average. We're bouncing off of that. People base things on their emotions because they don't see any way out. Well, how could the media's telling us we're going to have this economic crash? Well, what if Trump ends up pausing the tariffs? When if deals are reached and they end up going away? Absolutely incredible. People drink the media's Kool-Aid. It's incredible. NASDAQ 100, same thing here. These highs, we had a failed breakout, but up at the top. I talked about that at the time. We have a corrective move. Very well could have a massive inverse head and shoulders on our hands. Again, and we may even just get a shallow wave too. It could be deeper and be an unbalanced pattern, but you've got this possible inverse head and shoulders pattern. The head formation could complete up at this trend line. I think that's very possible. We've got Nvidia earnings this week, tomorrow after the bell. This is an area of interest. Again, the trend line from the December high and from the February high. I'll be watching that. Maybe we even overthrow it a little bit, but I think that you could follow Bitcoin. Bitcoin's already made new highs. NASDAQ and S&P very well could. We've moved above, just like Bitcoin, above the 78.6 Fibonacci's right here. We've had the sell-off here. We dropped 25.5%. We've now rallied up 30%, and we've moved above the 78.6 Fibonacci. I talked about the Fibonacci retracements back at the bottom. We've moved above them. Yes, we're going to go to new highs. Again, we do, and we're likely going to get some kind of pullback. If we do, then the bears are going to tell us, triple top or whatever on NASDAQ and do the same thing for Bitcoin. And again, we're likely completing our first wave higher and going to get a pullback for a second wave. Maybe it's deeper than what I have marked here. I'm just marking a possible inverse head and shoulders as you can see it here. Points forming the same pattern. You can see it in my video. I'll link it at the end of this one. Nvidia earnings after the bell tomorrow on the 28th. Stalling at the 78.6 Fibonacci from the high here down to the low here. Again, it's probably going to move above this area. It did slightly already, but talked about the possibility of a bullish scenario where we still see Nvidia go make new highs and help the NASDAQ complete the blow-off top. I told you, if Nvidia topped over here, we had to see support being taken out with the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ and S&P bounced off major support, so now you've got a shot where Nvidia is going to go make new highs. This whole thing could have been a massive corrective move. Again, have a wave 1 scenario here. Talked about the extended wave 3 on NASDAQ and the S&P earlier the month, and I told you we're going to be getting the Nvidia earnings later in the month, and that could help get that extended wave 3 scenario. It looks like that is going to be the case. Pop higher on Nvidia, this 5-wave impulsive move higher, well above our 78.6 Fibonacci. Nvidia daily chart here, because we could very well count Nvidia as a massive corrective pattern with wave 3 being here. You got an A, a B, and a C, or this could be a complex WXY pattern and completing a wave 4 at the April low and now starting a 5-leg push higher to complete a blowout top. That very well could be the case for Nvidia because, again, we didn't see S&P or the NASDAQ taking out the 200 period moving average with this sell-off that we've had. 100-week moving averages. Horizontal support, we bounced off those levels. So, again, Nvidia very well could be on its way to highs if we get a scenario. If this was corrective, this scenario very well could be the case. It could take us on into the summer or on into the fall. Spaced it out into the fall, it could be that, but we could be in this first wave right here of a 5-leg push higher to complete the blowout top for Nvidia. So keep that in mind. Get Nvidia earnings tomorrow after the closing bell. Help the market complete the first wave higher in this 5-leg push higher. Told you we got that bearish inside day. We had a bearish Harami cross where you got the wide range bar, you get the doji cross right there. That's a bearish pattern, but I told you it might only just be a pullback, which I think that's correct. But we still might end up getting a divergence on the RSI and the awesome oscillator. I think that will be correct. Bouncing off the 20-period moving average, that's positive. We're back above the 10-period, that's positive. We're gapped higher. Rally resumes. S&P was up to over 2% today. The Moody's downgrade. Oh, yields are going higher. They shrugged off the Moody's news. Yields went a little bit higher. No. Trump slaps on the 50% tariff on the EU. Told you these are just excuses to have the pullback for going higher. Continue to be bullish. You need to believe we're going to go up to the levels I keep talking about. This hollow red candlestick back here, I told you that the day it happened, and I told you we've likely bottomed. When everybody's telling us we're going to have a Black Monday crash, again, the opposite is likely going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. I think the bearish Harami was a reversal pattern. I think it was just a short-term pullback. I think it's over, and I think we're resuming the advance as I've been talking about and as I've been warning you about with the extended wave 3 scenario. I told you if I was wrong and we already have the minor wave 1 done and we get a pullback, then again we could pull back to the 50 and the cloud here. But I told you maybe the 50 comes up closer to the 200 before we get any kind of pullback. We can get well above this level and then pull back to it, and it will act as support or just underneath of it, underneath the in the 200. They might get closer to a bullish cross or actually get a bullish cross. Bitcoin's already gotten a bullish cross. It's likely why we're going to get a pullback very soon with Bitcoin. The market's playing catch up and following Bitcoin. Told you this scenario was possible, that we have a 5-leg push already done. We get a lower high here and we pull back. I think it's less likely. I could be wrong. My guess is we're going to go higher. I think the Nvidia earnings will probably help the market, and we'll see the divergences begin to set up on these RSIs. So again, this count will be invalidated if we go to a new recent high to go back and test the February peak. I've shown you this count, but I told you I thought that the extended wave 3 scenario is much more likely. This is the count that I've marked here for the S&P. Now I have two possible scenarios here. One is the black count, that we have a 1 here, a 2, and then we get a 3, and we're still working on 3. Okay, with the black count, we're still working on the extended wave 3. I call it an extended wave 3 scenario. And then we get a pullback for 4 and 5, and we eventually make our way up to this trend line that I've been talking about, and then get a pullback for right shoulder, maybe something that is similar to this, maybe something a little bit deeper. We'll see. It's the black scenario that says we're going to try to make it towards this trend line and maybe move to a new high, an all-time high, like Bitcoin has already done. Now the other scenario is the blue count, and the blue count right here, where we have 1, 2 at the black, and then this was 3. This completed the 3. And the wave 3 is done, and then we have 4, and then we go up here and we get 5, maybe lower high or a slightly higher high. So again, either one of those counts I think are more likely than the first wave already being done and we're now pulling back. But I'm telling you, if we see one of these counts, the blue count or the black count, play out, and I think the black count here has some real possibilities. We come up here, and we come up closer to this trend line right here. Once we get a peak, whenever that happens, my words, the bears are going to do what they've been saying all the way up. Okay, here comes the crash. Comes the bear market. The Fed didn't panic down here. We're getting the blow off top. This is a preview of coming attractions. This is the fake out for the herd, the so-called experts, for the bears. Make a new high, lull everybody into a false sense of security, and then you get the massive rug pull and the massive crash and usher in the bear market, and the market begins to price in the recession. People that were calling for the crash down here and the bear market, and for the recession, oh, we're in recession, are the same people up here that told us we weren't going to have a crash Have a soft landing for the recession. There was going to be no recession. People are completely oblivious to what's going on, and they're emotional. They do everything by emotion. That's what the herd does. I think the black count is very possible, but I don't want to roll up the blue count here, but that's what I think is going on, and I think you're going to finish the first wave, get the second wave, and then I think you're going to get a spectacular rise higher towards some of the target levels I've been talking about on the weekly chart. S&P daily here. Again, I think you're going to get a divergence here. It might be, before all is said and done, it might even be a triple divergence. Before all is said and done, if this scenario plays out and we end up going to a new all-time high, I think is very possible. You can pull back to the 200 period as the 50 is either about to cross above it or as the 50 crosses above it. What happened in 2007, we dipped below the 200. Now, we didn't get the bearish cross then. Did pull back, we dipped below the 200, and then we got back above it, and then we pulled back to the 200. You can see something similar to that here. We've had more exaggerated moves in this market, I think, at any other time in history. Exaggerated moves up, exaggerated moves down. Don't rule out a triple divergence here, but I think you'll at least get a divergence, probably get a divergence that forms, get a pullback, and then you might even see a triple divergence develop here if we extend the first wave all the way to a new all-time high. Certainly possible. Now, the wave one being done that I talked about, that would mean that we'd have an ABC move here. If we move to new highs, it invalidates that count, okay? This count becomes invalidated. Again, as I keep saying, I believe that that's going to be the case. But here, I still have it marked on the chart to show you as we're watching both of those counts. This count, again, the inverse head and shoulders that we've overthrown this level. I think the larger inverse head and shoulders, as I've been showing you on the daily chart, is likely going to be the case. We had this divergence. I talked about it. That's given us this pullback. I think this is a corrective move rather than a larger corrective move. Count's still in play if we set up a lower high. So we don't want to rule this out, but I think it's less likely in my opinion. We can't make new highs tomorrow or after we get the earnings for Nvidia. Seeing Nvidia sell off, then maybe we're going to rally with Nvidia, and I think that will help the NASDAQ go even higher. We have the MACD firming up. I talked about this over the weekend, firming up at the center line, turning back up. I told you this just could be a smaller corrective move, and I think that's going to end up being proven correct. I'm still open-minded to this scenario, but it has to prove itself. We got to come back down, take out the slow, and end up having today's rally completely fail. I think this is more likely, or we come closer to that trend line at least, or come closer to testing this high, and then I think you get a wave 1 and 2. Again, the extended wave 3 scenario, and then I think eventually you get the wave 4, the wave 2 completing the wave 3, 4, and 5, and end up going to much higher levels. Now, I don't know if the S&P makes it to a new high, new all-time high right now, or if we pull back first and then we do it. Bitcoin's already done it. We'll see what happens. Eventually, we're going to move towards this trend line right here. This is a trend line we bounced off of from the 2020 low. We bounced off of this trend line right here, and we bounced off of horizontal support, and we held above our 200 period moving average, a black line you see right there. This is major support. That's why I told you, if you break these levels, it's extremely bearish. You bounce off of them, it's extremely bullish. This is what I think is going to happen. I think you get the final phase of the blow off top. Likely move towards this trend line, this parallel boundary that I've drawn towards that trend line from the 2020 low, from the 2022 low, from the 2023 low, and then the April low. We bounced off that trend line. So again, that's where I think we're headed, and I think that will produce a top. How long we take to get there? Could be the summer, could be the fall. We're having a pretty powerful rally. In the coming months ahead, this is where I think we're going. The herd going to do exactly what they did here. They didn't tell us we were about to crash and, recession's coming. They told us that we're going to have a soft landing and there's no risk of a crash. Dropped 21%, and they said, we're about to crash and we're going to have a massive recession. We do the complete opposite. Say the same thing up here. Extremely complacent. Dodge the recession with the tariffs. Bear market's over. We dropped over 20%. That was a bear market. It's over. Just like they told us back over here in 2022. That was a bear market. These are not bear markets. major corrections or crashes long-term bull market from the 2009 low. This is what I think is going on.